Hi, this is Stephen Greif.
Hi, hello. My name's Michael Briant, and I directed Blake 7, and it's still alive and kicking.
You're right, of course. You will tell us everything. But first, we need you for a far more important venture. We've codenamed it Project Avalon.
I won't help you. You can't force me to help you.
Don't be naive. I can force you to do anything. It isn't necessary, though. You're already helping me. Just by being here, you've set in motion a chain of events that's been absolutely predetermined.
I don't understand.
No? Did you think your capture at this particular point was a match of chance? It was a carefully calculated strategy. You're worth a great deal to me. You're going to give me Blake, his crew, and his undamaged ship. The Federation wants the Liberator. You and I are going to give it to them.
Hello, and welcome back to Blake 7 The Way Back. I'm Todd.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip.
This week, we're going to be looking at Series A, Episode 9, Project Avalon. A rebel spy, captured by a deformed villain and held in a secret base, is tortured to reveal her secrets. Against overwhelming odds, our heroes break into the base, rescue the beautiful woman, and aboard the fastest ship in the galaxy, all may not be as it seems. Join us now and see how Project Avalon is Star Wars made by the BBC, but better. Well, in some ways. Okay, Philip, you've got some facts and figures for us, please.
Project Avalon by Terry Nation. Producer David Maloney. Director Michael E. Briant, who's previously directed The Way Back and The Web. Script editor Chris Boucher. Designer Chris Pemsel. This is the only Blake 7 episode that Chris will design. He's an extensive career in the BBC, starting in 1962 with comedies like Meet the Wife, Hi There's Rolf Harris, which we probably better not talk about now, and Frankie Howard, and also Not Only But Also. He went on to do From Death to Us Part, but then he became more serious doing costume dramas for the BBC and did one Doctor Who, The Enemy of the World. His career went on all the way up to the early 2000s with shows such as A Very Peculiar Practice, starring Peter Davison, Spender, and Peak Practice. So after the designer comes the costume designs, this time by Barbara Lane and Rupert Jarvis. Music by Dudley Simpson. First screened in the UK on Monday, 27th of February 1978 at 7:15. First screened in Australia, Friday 18th of May 1979 at 8:20. Filming took place at Wookiee Hole on the 10th to the 13th of January 1978. Studio recording later in the month on the 30th and 31st of January 1978 in TC3. The audience was 9.7 million, and the appreciation score was 71, which would be the highest score for the whole season. And the chart position was 36, which is third in the year, third for the season.
Yes, I think that's interesting. I think by now the show has got a pretty solid base, and after 9 episodes. So, Dwayne, how was this episode described at the time?
It was described thus. Project Avalon. Travis engineers another deadly plan to destroy Blake and capture the Liberator. Even Serverland believes it cannot fail, and when Blake carries out a rescue, he wonders why it's been allowed to succeed.
Oh, interesting. Another deadly, what was it? A deadly
plan.
A deadly plan. It's always deadly for all the poor extras.
Yes.
And quite a few this time. first impressions. We'll go and see what Chris had to say when he viewed this episode with Philip a little while ago.
Okay, Chris, you're about to go and watch for the first time Project Avalon.
Yes.
What are you expecting?
Well, again, I can't tell anything from the title, Project Avalon. The only thing I'm assuming he's going to be in it is Travis. I'm assuming he'll be in it somehow, chasing after or doing something. Obviously, chasing after Blake. But other than that, the name doesn't give me any clue of what it's going to be about. I'm looking forward to finding out. We don't know much about Gan. He seems to be a little bit underused. So I'd like to know more about him and about the chip in his head, why it's there.
Okay, well, we'll hold it there. You go watch the episode and we'll chat once it's finished.
All right, talk to you then. See ya.
Bye. Well, Chris, you've just got back from watching Project Avalon. What did you think?
I like this one a lot, actually. I thought it was done really well. I like the fight scenes and the rescue mission. I just thought that was really well done for the time that it was filmed, in the 70s. I just thought, wow, it's really good.
It's very hard to convince these fight scenes in studio, but they actually tried to manage it quite well.
They did, yeah, and some of it was on location as well. I definitely recognised the location. There was a lot of Doctor Who references in this one. I saw a lot. At first, it reminded me a bit of Planet of the Daleks, but afterwards, having a bit of research, I couldn't really see any links apart from that he was the writer. But there's a lot of links to Robots of Death in this one. A lot of links. Dask was in it, and it was the same director. The writer of Robots of Death was the script editor, and Dudley Simpson did the music for both. So, yeah, I was quite surprised that there were so many links to that just one story. A bit of violence, which I'm not used to seeing in Doctor Who. They even do the bullet holes into the walls when they're shooting, which I thought was great. Blake broke someone's neck, just came up right behind him, twisted it, broke his neck and threw him on the ground. Yeah. But overall, yeah, no, I really liked this one a lot. Yeah, it was great. Because I've always assumed that Blake's rebel group was the only one. And that was, I just didn't occur to me that there were other rebel groups on other planets. So that sort of opened my eyes a little bit.
Yeah, well, so thanks for your feedback. And we'll, next episode you'll be watching will be called Breakdown. And we'll chat about that next time.
Great. Talk to you then. See ya.
Okay, thank you for that. Dwayne, what are your thoughts overall?
I enjoyed this very much. Of course, I instantly recognised Wookiee Hull, and there's some other interesting facts about that and why it was used that'll no doubt come out through the show today. And I also instantly noticed Glynis Barber as the mutoid, so her first appearance in Blake 7. It's not an overly complex story, but an enjoyable one. And there's lots going on despite it being a rather simple story.
I think if you wanted to take someone to a Blake 7 episode and give them the idea of what is Blake 7 about, this is the perfect episode. It's got all the heroes basically having something to do. It's got Travis and Servalan now in full force. It's got the Evil Federation. It's got a plot. It's got subterfuge. So this is really, and lots of battles, this is really what Blake 7, when people think about Blake 7, this is the kind of episode people think about. Of course, we know it's much more than that, but in people's heads, this is definitive Blake 7.
See, that's what I think of this episode. It's definitive Blake 7, and I enjoyed it immensely for all those things. But I think the previous 7 or 8 episodes, you need all that the build up and the world building in order to get to this point. You needed to have Servalan introduced. You needed to have a couple of Travis episodes in order for this one to really land. And I must say, I think it's my favourite thus far of this series for me up to this point. Is there anything else you want to add, Chris, after your initial thoughts coming back to the episode? Perhaps you've watched it again recently?
Yes, I did watch it again recently, and I loved it. I thought it was just like you guys. Thought it was great. You mentioned Star Wars before, and I thought that when they had the fighting scenes and running up and down the corridors and shooting and everything, I thought, oh, this is sort of BBC Star Wars. I can't say anything else apart from what you guys said. Yeah, great episode.
Dwayne, you mentioned the use of the location, Wookiee Hole, and of course we start with that and with Travis, not on our regular crew. So I find it interesting, the beginning of this episode, that we're with him and seeing what he's up to. And the director, Michael E. Briant, directed the Doctor Who story Revenge of the Cybermen 3 years earlier, which heavily featured the caves and the location that we see here. I just love all of that. I love all of the shots, all of the underground stuff in those first sequences, with all the extras and with Travis and the mutoids. And I just think it sets a wonderful scene for the whole episode. How do you guys feel about the beginning of this story and the setup?
I think it's wonderful. Even though, yes, you've put the connection between the Doctor Who story and this episode being Michael E. Briant using the same location, I think that being a snow-covered planet really suits the setting really well. You get the cold feel of the outside, the cold feel. Well, I know it's cold inside Wookiee Hole as well. So even though he directed Revenge of the Cybermen, you can put these two side by side, and he's got different angles and shots that you can recognize it, but it's not the same. He's gone for something new, which is really good. I enjoy that part of it.
The cold is very interesting, and I guess we'll come to that with what the Liberator crew have to actually do in order to stay warm. But Philip, you were going to say?
I was going to say, you can see now that Travis is so well entrenched as a character that you can actually start with him. And in many ways, this is actually Travis's story. So last week, we dealt with the episode Jewel, with Blake and Travis fighting each other. But it was very much Blake being interfered with by Travis. I mean, but now we actually have Travis's story has as much time and weight as Blake's does. In fact, in some ways, it's got more. And in some ways, Travis is the more interesting character in this, in terms of wanting to see what he's doing, because we all know there's something beyond the basic plot that's going on. I think you talked about this being like Star Wars. As I said, it does feel like Terry Nation is copying bits of Star Wars. You have the princess, the capture, the base, the people coming in, the escape. You've got Darth Vader versus Travis. You've got so many, Grand Moff Tarkin and Servalan. You have so many similarities between Star Wars. But I would say it's slightly better, like you suggested, than Star Wars, because you've got the twist at the end. And whereas Star Wars just became a all-out battle scene and spaceships, which Blake said could never do with the budget, though I do think that the fight scene is amazing in this. What you've got added is to this is the ending, and you've got the twist and the surprise. And in fact, Travis has done so much more than you were expecting. And to me, that actually makes this actually in some ways, story-wise, better than Star Wars, because that twist at the end.
So what do we think of all the plot points here at the beginning with Travis and the mutoids and trying to find Avalon? And there's obviously a traitor in the mix there. There's quite a lot of, creative camera work going on and all the, the whole massacre and everything. What do we think of all of that in terms of adding to the story? I mean, I just love all that location work.
Yeah, the location work's wonderful. It's interesting. It's a lot like Terry Nation's gone back to the very first episode, The Way Back. Lots of people wouldn't have seen the very first episode, which actually started on location, with a secret meeting, with a rebel leader, with the Federation turning up, except they were guards, not mutoids, with a massacre. So there's actually a lot of very similar scenes, and actually still filmed by Michael E. Briant. So he used some of the very similar techniques, handheld cameras and close-ups. And so in many ways, it actually harks back to that first episode and is fairly similar in lots of scenes. But it's a slightly different aim what we're going for. On the whole, the casting is really good, except for one person. I think the casting is really strong. Oh, we've got love Stuart Fell turns up again and does 4 stunts he manages to do in 5 minutes. Just seeing Stuart Fell there and seeing other people in terms of casting, it's just really, really strong cast.
Well, there's been mentions of Star Wars already, and I think that relates mainly to the fight scene later on, but there is possibly a crossover with Star Wars in the opening scenes too, because this was a year or two before they would have been making The Empire Strikes Back. So is it possible that George Lucas saw this and went, I like that setting, I'm going to put that in my second Star Wars film?
Yep. That's a good observation. I like that. Yeah. I just think the direction's really good, and the whole massacre thing and all the explosions and the mutoids and all that, I think is really, really well done.
Star Wars does have the Jawas massacre scene and all the bodies, which is similar too. So there are a lot of parallels between Star Wars and this story.
And that all happens, the massacre and everything happens before we even see Blake on the Liberator, doesn't it? I think. Is that right? So it sort of builds up the tension, and we get, we're kind of wondering what's going on, and we haven't even seen Blake yet. So yeah, I think the camera work is great, and he makes it feel claustrophobic as well, I think. So I kind of feel like I'm in the caves there with them. So yeah, he did really good.
We've been talking about the director, Michael E. Briant, so let's hear from him now.
The third Blake 7 story you worked on was Project Avalon. Do you know when you first got the script for this and what your first impressions were of it?
I mean, I really don't quite remember when I got the script. I was very aware of the pressure Chris Boucher was under just getting these scripts out, because honestly, Terry was delivering, like I said, 40 pages for a 70-minute, there should have been 50 or 60 pages, and he was delivering 30 or 40 in a synopsis. I mean, I suspect that all the stories were Terry-nations. I suspect Terry did, well, this is the story, and he did the outline, and he'd do a few pages of it, and then go, yeah, that's fine, and he'd deliver it. Give me the check. And Chris had to make it into 50 minutes. Chris had no choice. Then I think this was the moment when Chris Boucher and David Maloney had got together, how they saw the show going forward. When I walked into that rehearsal room, because by that time I'd done 2 eps, the web was, as I've described it, it was fine, but not as good as the way back. But the way back I thought was brilliant. Pennant had done a couple of eps, and Veer had come in and almost had a nervous breakdown. I think he'd never done Doctor Who, he'd never done sci-fi. So for Veer, it was like, oh! And I think Dougie Camfield had come in and done one. So actually, when I walked into that rehearsal room, it was, the company had changed. There was a different feel from the previous episodes that I'd done. Not unsurprisingly, because Gareth was really the only actor in the first one. But there was actually, that's interesting you should say that, there was a different feel about it. And that was an awful lot to do with Jacqueline Pearce and Stephen. Yeah, Stephen, who I'd worked with a lot before. That had a lot to do with Jacqueline and Stephen. And it had a lot to do with the Federation becoming more real somehow. I'm pretty sure that was the robot that I absolutely hated.
It was.
I'm absolutely sure Visual Effects just got that robot when, oh yeah, there's the one from Doctor Who, rejigged it a little bit, and it became that robot again. And it was just as bad. Yeah, well, I mean, Wookiee Hole Cave, that tunnel in Wookiee Hole Cave was sort of gravel. I mean, it may have had a cement base, but it had gravel and stuff on top. And Daleks run on, furniture casters. If you'd had furniture, it just couldn't have operated. None of these things can operate on location. You have to put them on hardboard or blockboard or something if you want them to be moving around. And if you want it running up and down distances, then it really has to be on. It has to be on a track or on sheets of hardboard, blockboard. And that really wasn't practical in Wookiee Hole. That's where the explosion was. There was all this business. There was this cave door, which was the junction between the Wookiee Hole tunnel location and the studio where they were having the big gunfight. And there was the explosion.
Ava, Kelly, bring us up. Did you hear me? Bring us up. Ava, Kelly.
And Vis Effects triumphed with that because I love them really. And I'm not there was never any animosity. There was just sort of mild irritation on my part. They probably hate me. We did the explosion, and the tunnel filled with smoke. I mean, just like in a major fire, the tunnel filled with smoke. We were coughing, and we were like 100 yards from an entrance to get out of that tunnel, to get out of that section of the caves. And somebody got on their hands and knees and went, if you get on your hands and knees, you can actually see the floor, you can actually see the ground and breathe a bit. And so the entire crew ended up on their hands and knees, crawling out of the smoke-filled tunnel to the door that got them into the great outside.
Speaking of casting for Project Avalon, this was the first time Glynis Barber appeared in the show. She was to come back a few years later in a regular role. But did you cast Glynis in this episode, and had you worked with her before?
I gave Glynis her very first television job ever.
Cast a Monique Bryant as a mutoid. Any relation?
Yeah, keep it in the family. Oh, Stuart, yeah, terrific. I mean, Stuart was a real pleasure to work with. I mean, he got on very well with it. He was he didn't make a great drama out of it all. It wasn't all sort of, you just said, I want this, and you'd go, yeah, okay. Could you throw yourself off the building? Yeah, okay. Could you blow yourself up? Yeah, okay. All stuntmen, when they do the job, want to give you a bit more than you've asked for, because, I guess, like directors always wanted to be as good as they possibly can do it, stuntmen wanted to be as good because they want another job, and also because they take a pride in their work. But Stuart was an ex-para in Borneo. Yeah, he was an ex-paratrooper, I think in Borneo. Were we fighting in Borneo or Kenya or somewhere like that? And then he came out of the military. He told me this terrible story. He was after Mau Mau rebels, and he told me the story that they used to go out ambushing. Quite interesting thing about ambushing, that when you're waiting to ambush somebody, you mustn't think about them. You must keep your mind absolutely blank, because if you think about them, the people who are walking into the ambush feel that so you're taught to think nothing. And if they were out in the jungle on patrol and they shot a Mau Mau terrorist, I think it was Mau Mau, that they were, whoever it was that they were after, and killed them, clearly they couldn't, take the body or the bodies back. So they used to cut off their hands for their fingerprints and carry them on a looped string around their belt, so that when they got back to base at the end of a 6-day patrol, they were able to account for these kills and say, here, there's that. So that was Stuart's story to me.
Project Avalon ends with a very large running gun battle. How do you manage to keep excitement happening in a show?
Gun battles they're a real problem in a TV studio, because everyone is so close together. And generally speaking, they're meant to be a long way away. If you're close to somebody with a gun, you're probably going to be able to shoot them or get shot. If you're some distance away, then there's a chance of people missing.
Put this on.
Right, Villa, fall back.
Go!
Jenna.
Right, go!
So it's difficult. Basically, it's a mechanical thing. Basically, you set up very set situations. And broadly speaking, in a gun battle, you have one person shooting a gun, a shot of somebody shooting a gun, and you have a shot of the round arriving and either hitting the other person or missing the other person or whatever. So you need to very clearly set up with the actor who's shooting, say Sally, with those, slightly dodgy guns that we had. You needed in the rehearsal room to set up, bang, you're shooting the guy there, then you're shooting that guy, then you're shooting at that guy, then a round is going to hit the thing above your head or whatever, or a round is going to, you've got a extra or a stuntman perhaps in the studio with a round, which of course is an explosive charge put into the scenery, detonator probably, put into the scenery and plastered over. So it is very much a mechanical setting up. And as a director, you set up the shots you're going to take, the shots as they're going to be received, and vice versa from the antagonist. Then you put it together in the edit. But you've got to have a plan. You can't just do that. You actually have a very set plan as to how the gun battle is going to go on. So you work out your set plan, and then you instruct the actors in an absolutely mechanical way as to how it's going to happen. And then try to make it as real as you can. Then try to make it, in a TV studio, really difficult because you can't get the separation and the distance. On location, easier. In the rehearsal room, I must admit it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but Sally Navette had not done a great deal of television, and I think she'd never done any shooting scenes. So when we came to this corridor shooting scene, I said, so we know when you're firing with your gun. And in the rehearsal room, she was holding either a wooden set square or a piece of wood, not a plastic thing with lights on it. I said, every time you do it, I'd like you to say bang, bang, and then we'll know that you shot. So bang, 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 bang. And that, I confess, a little bit of me was in rehearsals, it just used to amuse me, watching Sally going bang, 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 bang. It made me smile quite there. So we did this for 6 or 7 days in the rehearsal room. When we got to the studio and we started the first run through of the scene, Sally came around the corner, pointed her plastic doobry and went bang, 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 to which the floor manager quite explained it would be better not to, just to press the trigger and let them light up.
So, but you actually have her meeting Avalon and working with Avalon and their relationship, which is why she later knows her.
Great box set, by the way.
It's a great box set.
Yep.
I think it's interesting also too, like, again, Terry Nation's created a not a very hospitable environment like he likes to do. And so they have to have their little heating suits and that sort of thing. It's a very Terry kind of thing. And of course, obviously at some point Villa is asked to beam down too, like in the sequences early on. And there's that some wonderful lines of dialogue again.
And I'm very susceptible to low temperatures. I've got a weak chest.
The rest of you is not very impressive.
I think that must be the line of the episode.
Yeah.
I just burst out laughing,
Yeah. It's actually, I actually had the chance to read the Trevor Hoyle book today. The Trevor Hoyle book, he's using the first draft scripts before they've gone to rehearsal, before a second draft. And there's a number of differences. And the thing that you notice is all the lines that actually make this funny, none of them are there. So all those lines are Chris Boucher. So all that stuff with Villa's not there. All of Avon's clever lines aren't there. The scene with Villa turning up his suit and burning himself isn't there. The mutoids aren't mutoids, they're androids. The idea of moving into mutoids hadn't happened when with Terry's original scripts. And so it's really interesting getting to see what had been originally in the original show. And it's a bit darker. In fact, the scene of fungus killing that person is really quite horrific in terms of how it reads and how it would have been on the script. So it's always interesting seeing that Chris Boucher has brought so much to the show and so much characterization to the show.
I really love some of those lines too. Some of those lines between Callie, Villa, and Avon are sensational. There's another line too, which was really funny. Yeah, I think you picked the funniest one, but And I think in this episode, Avon is really coming into his character more than ever before.
Does it support any intelligent life?
Does the Liberator?
That's the kind of dialogue that we know Avon for and love him. And that core three, you've got Callie, Villa, and Avon, who are going to be there for quite a long time as that core going forward. This is where they kind of solidify it to me, more than they have so far.
I think part of what's happened now is Blake 7 is now showing on the BBC. So although this is episode, what did you say? Was it episode
9?
The first 3 episodes have now shown, and people are now getting an idea of the characters. I think people like Chris Boucher and even Terry Nation are looking at the characters and going, "Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that," and it's starting to now come into the scripts. And I think particularly with Avon, he now has become a real lead in his own right. So when Blake and Jen are gone, he's definitely in command of the Liberator. And Gan and Callie don't question they do question a bit, but he just leads and takes over and doesn't allow any nonsense because he's now very much a leader. You can understand where the clash is going to happen with Blake and him.
Yeah, no, I think all of those interactions are really coming into their own. Philip, are the subterons and the ice crystals all mentioned in the original?
Yeah, well, subterons have to be mentioned, have to be originals because it's such a Terry Nationism, isn't it?
Yes,
what they are. And the ice crystals are there, but they're not the most valuable substance in the universe at that stage. And it's described not quite so as poetically as it is in the script. But there are still ice crystals there. And at first it does, Avon still suggests, maybe she's there for money. And no, she's a rebel through and through like Blake is, therefore that's her purpose.
It's interesting, like when they go down, there is one survivor from the massacre, as there always is. When his face is revealed, I immediately went, "Oh, I know that face from Doctor Who." So I think go straight into our segment, Who's on Who?
Okay, boys, what are we placing our bets on? What numbers of people, not including the regular cast or Servalan and Stephen Greif, of course. So how many? Chris, how many do you reckon have been in Doctor Who?
I've got 3.
3?
I got 3.
Yeah, nice, good call. Todd, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm going for 3 this week. My call of 0 last week was a mistake.
There's always someone. Philip, what about you?
Well, I only recognised 2, so I'm looking forward to seeing if I'm wrong.
Recognised 2? Well, I've cheated a little bit because if you're going technically by Doctor Who, the TV series, I found 4 people who have been in Who, and we've mentioned one of them already. But if you count Big Finish appearances in Doctor Who as well, there are actually 6. So there's more than that. So we'll start off with the character Shevna, played by David Bailey. If he's the face that you recognised, that would have been the one. Where did you recognise him from, Todd?
Robots of Death.
City. What was the reason?
Reason? It was haywire. I wouldn't let a robot work on me, not for all the Zelenite in this ship.
Shut up, chub. Thank you, V16. A Vought-class robot has over 1 million multi-level constrainers in its circuitry. All of them would have to malfunction before it could perform such an action.
You're trouble, Dask. You're taking the magic out of life.
Robot upbringing?
Yes, Doctor. I was brought up a superior being. Brought up to realize that my brother should live as free beings and not as slaves to human dross.
Robots would have no existence without humans, don't you see that, Daz?
No, I shall free them. I shall program them with the ambition to rule the world. And then...
Robots of Death, of course, playing Taron Capel, and directed by Michael E. Briant once again. So he's brought in his regular cast.
People he likes to work with, doesn't he?
Yep.
Interesting, David Bailey also appeared as Philip. Who was he in Big Finish?
The Toymaker.
Celestial Toymaker. He was in The Nightmare Fair, the unmade 6th Doctor story, and he did a companion chronicle called Solitaire, which was an 8th Doctor story with him and Charlie Pollard. Did you know he was also considered for the role of Garmin in Genesis of the Daleks?
No.
So there you go. Garmin was Dennis Chinnery, wasn't it? Glynis Barber, she has not appeared in the television series, but she has appeared in a couple of big finishes. She was with the Fourth Doctor in a story called The Sinestron Kill, and she was in a First Doctor story with Stephen Noonan playing in The Outlaws. So that was Glynis Barber. So she's done a couple of Doctor Who's that way. An actor called John Baker, who played the scientist. Did anyone recognise the scientist? Chris, where'd you recognise him from?
The Visitation. And Colony in Space. Yep.
Very good. So the character in Colony in Space is called Adelphi, which is actually, I just thought, Time Lord.
Why, sure the Master knows.
The report on the Doomsday weapon is missing from our files. Only he could have taken it.
Then we can use the Doctor to deal with this problem.
The Doctor resents his exile bitterly. Do you think he'll cooperate with us? I doubt it. We immobilized his TARDIS, took away his freedom to move in space and time.
Then we must restore his freedom. For as long as it serves our purpose.
He's one of the Time Lords in the opening scenes.
Yep.
And Ralph, the Visitation, in the first few minutes where the Pteroleptals come and destroy that whole household. He's the servant in the Visitation. He's also in Planet of the Spiders in a couple of uncredited roles, believe it or not. I think he's part of the audience in those opening scenes. All right, John Rolfe plays Turlock. Turlock is the guy who was the traitor. He has been in several Doctor Who's, but one most famously, Chris.
I remember. I actually watched it a couple of weeks ago. That's why I recognised the War Machines. I watched that a couple of weeks ago. He was in the War Machines. Yeah,
that's not the one I thought you'd know him from, because the story that I knew him from was the Green Death. He was most definitely in the Green Death. He was one of the guys that was taken over in the company. He was hypnotised. I can't remember. It wasn't Elgin. It was someone else in the company. Might have come later. Of course, we mentioned Stuart Fell. So there's the fourth one in actors who have appeared on Doctor Who on television. But the last actor, David Stern, he was a guard. So you obviously never saw his face. And I was looking at the guards thinking, I wonder if I've heard his voice before. And yes, he's been in a Fourth Doctor adventure for Big Finish. And he's also been in productions of Torchwood Soho, and Graceless. So that's Who's on Who.
The action does shift to the base where Avalon is interrogated. The prisoner is experimented upon. What do we think of the Avalon interrogation scene and what she may or may not be wearing?
Well, I enjoyed it. I know that.
Some of those camera angles, I'm going, really?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, first thing I just say, I think the set is amazing because that is all just one interlocked set. So I do think that, as I mentioned, I did a bit of a thing for Chris Pemsel at the beginning because I do think this is his one contribution to Blake Seven. I think it was a bit below him, to be perfectly honest. I get the feeling he's very much into costume dramas. But I do think he did an amazing set because it was all interlocked and how the cameras could move round and through it into different sections. And there's a lot of technology and a lot of panels and things that actually lights worked and flashed and opened up. And all that would have taken a lot of time and money. So I thought that was impressive. I do think the Avalon scenes were a bit uncomfortable. I don't think people being tortured. I mean, it's good to see the torture machine come back. I think that's the third time it's come back now. Round, tubey thing.
Oh, where was the second time? I don't remember the second time. I only remember it from the first episode.
Yeah, Encyclocade Destroy Callus put into it. So I do think the whole torture is always uncomfortable, but the very fact that they stripped her down as well, I think made it even slightly more uncomfortable. But I guess in terms of, well, spoilers if you must watch the episode by now, I hope, the fact that they needed to make a print of her body for the android, I guess they needed to do that. So I think that's another clue of what's coming. I mean, all throughout, as I said, the twist at the end I think is brilliant. And there are little clues all the way throughout that's what's going on, but you really don't see them because I think Terry's been very clever in actually hiding stuff from the audience. So, this time Travis is fully aware. I mean, everyone on the base is fully aware what's going on, but the audience is kept in the dark. Where often the audience knows what's going on, the characters don't. In this case, the characters know what's going on, but the audience doesn't, which I think actually drives the action. What do people actually think about the actress who's playing Avalon?
Can I be frank?
Yeah.
She's crap.
Yeah.
I think she's the weakest link. And it doesn't really take away from the episode. Like, she doesn't have to do very much, but I think she's crap's probably a bit too harsh. I think she's very average compared to other people. You know, I think Glynis Barber, who's playing the mutoid, is doing a great job at, like, I like the fact that Travis has this, like he had last week, one female speaking mutoid who seems to do all of the tasks for him. And I think she's really good at that. But I just think that she's very lackluster.
She auditioned for the part of Jenna, and I think in part she was given this role as sort of a because you didn't get Jenna in this role. But I do think she's miscast. She's not a strong actress, and I think Travis kind of lifts her slightly in those torture scenes because Stephen Greif is such a good actor, but you can still see she's outclassed. And there's other things. I just think she's miscast in terms of she's a bit too young. That she's apparently 50 rebellions on different planets, and yet she's in her mid-20s. So I really think they needed to cast someone who bit older, bit less beautiful, bit less glamorous, who could actually play the role a bit better. I don't think she was very convincing, even though they cast someone attractive. But aside from that, I don't think it really worked.
Was Alexander the Great? He was 30 when he died, wasn't he? It is possible that she was up there. I must say, I didn't really notice her acting being bad. No, I'm serious. I didn't. I actually enjoyed the one thing that was distracting me in that interrogation scene was that the light was flashing. And I was remembering Blake's face being in pain and twisted agony in the first episode. And I was thinking, why is that light flashing and she's not in pain? So that was kind of what I was thinking about during that scene.
I think it was brain scanning her, not actually trying to cause pain. It wasn't. She wasn't being tortured. We thought she was being tortured. In fact, what they were doing was scanning for the robot. Yep. So, and I think once again, that probably is another clue. The fact that she wasn't screaming in pain should have been us going, "Oh, what's going on? Why isn't she in pain?" Because that wasn't the purpose.
I thought they were sort of getting ready to torture her. I thought this was leading up to, and she'd probably be tortured off screen. I kind of have to agree. She was a bit lackluster. I kind of agree with Phil when he said that the interrogation scene, she was a bit stronger, and that's probably because of Stephen, because he was in there and he sort of built it up as well. But yeah, overall, she wasn't that great. She was probably more convincing as the android than as that probably sounds a bit bad, but yeah, I just think she was more.
That's what Todd was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, there are moments with the characters and the direction. I think they did really nicely. I mean, when she was, she set out in the cave when Travis first arrived. She's behind David Bailey's character, and when he calls for Avalon, David Bailey, I don't know if you noticed, he sort of steps in front of her. So he suddenly goes protective and moves in his position and so to defend her, and then she sort of pushes past and goes forward. Those lines are fine, yeah. But even the "who betrayed us" was just a bit over the top. Mind you, I'm not sure you noticed, Stephen Greif's not looking good there. He has had the worst hangover he's ever had in his life during those scenes, because the previous day he'd been filming Jewel on set with Gareth Thomas, and the two of them had gone out drinking. And Stephen Greif had less than an hour's sleep and was still drunk and having this major hangover. And apparently that day was just a day of absolute agony for him. And there's a few shots early on, actually, you see, in terms of he's deliberately got the goggles on and the fur down so you can't see how bad he looks, because he looks so shocking. And there's some scenes early on you can see, oh, yeah, he's definitely suffering from being drunk.
Did he reveal this in an interview with you?
Yeah, he did.
Very good. I think the scenes in that base are great. And the moment that Servalan turns up 20 minutes in with her male mutoid henchman just to be there to hold her coat, I think is hilarious. But
Supreme Commander, it's good to see you. A safe journey, I trust.
Nothing is safe anymore. You've heard, of course, that there have been 2 attempts on my life.
I have. I was very concerned.
I consider Blake to be responsible. Oh, not personally, of course. But stories of his exploits are still circulating. They excite people. The fact that he is still free gives them hope, and that is dangerous, Travis. Hope is very dangerous.
The loss of it can be fatal, and the source of it all is about to be wiped out.
The whole pieces of dialogue between her and Travis, and you can see her manipulation of him and how it rattles him. Like, his whole demeanor just changes from being super confident, and she's really just, talking about the criticisms of him and the pressure to replace him, but how unofficially you have my full support. He is so good in those scenes.
It should have every chance of success.
I'm glad you approve.
Oh, Travis, you know better than that. In my position, one never approves anything until it is an undisputed success.
Yeah.
I really, probably for the first time, really liked his the character more. Do you know what I mean? I could see other sides rather than just the angry sort of, I'm going to get you and kill you, Blake sort of persona. Before he passed away, Stephen Greif was interviewed by Dwayne and Philip, and here are now some of his thoughts on the character of Travis, which he portrayed.
Stephen Greif is a multi-award-nominated National Theatre and Royal Shakespearean actor with a career spanning all genres and styles, including television, stage, film, radio, and the corporate world. But to us, he's best known as Space Commander Travis in Season 1 of Blake 7 on TV, and in audiobooks and full-cast audio dramas produced by Big Finish to this day. Welcome, Stephen, and thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Nice to speak with you.
For many of us, the thing that we all know you for and love you for is the role as Travis of Blake 7. So what was it that appealed to you about playing the part of Travis on TV?
Well, it meant that I'd be working with Gareth Thomas and Jan Chappell, with who I was with at the Royal Academy, and who I liked very much, and also with Paul Darrow, who had played my defence lawyer in the first of the Thames TV series Killers, the Steiny Morrison case, or The Corpse on Clapham Common, as Eric Linklater referred to it in his book. We became good mates and fellow movie buffs, and as you may know, it was Paulie who tipped me off about Blake 7. I knew absolutely nothing about sci-fi, but Travis's soldierly qualities and commitment, and of course his most powerful motivation, that of revenge, partly fueled by his lady boss, imperiously played by that Jackie Pearce, which back in 1977, pre-Thatcher days, was pretty unique, and that really appealed to me. Yeah.
You were very popular and we loved the role, but why wasn't it you didn't continue to play Travis into season 2?
Well, I nearly did. I had a change of heart about not doing it after talking to David Maloney, the producer. He assured me that there'd be no further repetitions of episodes ending with me uttering the deathless warning, "I'm going to get you, Blake." And I trusted and liked David and was promised, 9 or 10 episodes, so lots more work, more money, and further good times with my growing circle of workmates. However, at the same time, I was offered a cracking good 2-hour TV movie called The Sewers of Gold, it was based on an audacious bank robbery in Nice, playing opposite Ian McShane, and also with very good money, 3 weeks filming in the south of France. And that job, for me, replaced a brilliant series that I should have already filmed by then, called Out, by Trevor Preston, and directed by Big Jim Goddard. But I had ruptured my Achilles tendon playing squash at the RAC club, and I had to be recast. I remember ringing Jim Goddard at his home from my hospital bed and asking if I could play the part on crutches. I'm afraid his 4-word reply cannot be repeated here. By the way, my recasting resuscitated the career of Brian Marshall. He still owes me for that. Can you hear me up there, Brian? Bless his heart. The problem with the second series of Blake 7 was that the filming dates in the south of France clashed with the filming dates of Blake 7. Both dates were signed off, so one of them had to go for me. I was completely knackered after my Achilles tendon operation, followed by 6 weeks or so of seriously intense physiotherapy. It's an unpleasant and scary thing to do, busting your tendon. Also, I'd been doing TV work non-stop for years, so the thought of some days off, lying on a sunny beach in Nice, as opposed to running about in the rain on Rickmansworth Chalk Quarry in a heavy leather costume, was a no contest, I'm afraid. It was off to the Côte d'Azur for me, and thank you very much indeed, Lord Lou Grade. I should say the really good part about that job was that I met and fell in love with my future wife, who was involved in the casting of that movie, and which led to our having children and many years of happy family life.
It's been almost 45 years since you played that part. Is that right, if I get my maths right? Why do you think Blake Seven still has such a strong fan following even today?
Well, that's easy, actually. It's the characters and their relationships with each other, without a scintilla of doubt. I mean, forget about the daft plots and situations that come with sci-fi. They're good fun and all that, but it's the relationships within the Liberator and outside it with the Federation that really worked. And it's actually to the credit of Big Finish that the audiobooks and dramas are still spinning off and continue to be popular, thank goodness. I mean, Colin Baker is now, as you know, also playing a wild, quite un-Doctor Who-like character, who in one of the episodes is mixed up with a new incarnation of my part. And boy, are we having some fun. Also, Hugh Fraser is continuing to play the President in some of the Blake Seven adventures. And we're having lots of fun too, so onwards.
So were you surprised that there was still so much interest in Blake Seven when Big Finish approached you about coming back to it?
Not really, no. I knew that they were turning out Doctor Who stories, and on the success of that, it seemed natural that they would branch out.
Yeah, I guess you were aware of the ongoing interest through your involvement in fan conventions over the years. So were there any memorable experiences from some of those?
Oh, yeah, they were all fun, and it was a win-win situation for everybody involved, thanks primarily to Diane Geese and Horizon. Also, there have been a few very special tribute conventions to Gareth and Jackie, and next year to Paul, which is run by a small group of the most loving and dedicated fans, where people come from all over the world to join in the celebrations and affection for those who have left us. It's heavenly, truly, truly heavenly. Conversely, I recall Sally and I going to a mall somewhere in Kent, where we were put on one of the walkways together with film extras or TV extras who, by dint of being caught in the background of a photo taken of one of the stars of the film that was being shot, so they set up stalls with banners behind them and pictures of them in a crowd scene or in the background and with the star in the foreground, and selling 10x8s of these. Bizarre. Doesn't cover it, but good luck to them. Good luck, that's how it goes. She actually reminds me of a movie that John Schlesinger made called Day of the Locust, which is about the frenzy that resided in the fringes of the movie world back in the 1930s, I guess.
Just in terms of just Travis, is he much of Richard III?
No, absolutely not. No. He's not. He's very much simpler than all that. He's very simple bloke. What made you think he was?
Just in terms of tragic, troubled figure who longs for more but never has success.
No, I think all he longs for is to kill Blake. That's all he dreams about. I think he's a very simple fellow whose personality suited being in the army. And there are many people like that, you know, very blinkered lives. It's very narrow. Life is very simple for them. Forward. Obey orders and do it to the best of your ability. I don't think there's much more to him than that. I don't think he really has a sex life. I mean, it could be fun.
That's his biggest problem.
It could be fun. It could be fun to write some of that in, and I think it's been suggested in one or two of the dramas that I've done. I think I tried to suggest a hint of that, just to give it a bit more colour. or some colour, but I don't think he's very complicated at all. I think he just is what he is, dedicated.
And of course, Jacqueline Pearce is just sublime throughout all of that.
Yeah, I mean, the way she walks onto the base with her furs on, and then she just flicks off the fur onto the floor, knowing that someone will pick it up, and it's just she just exudes personality and power. And you're right, yeah, Travis up to that point has been so strong. He's been massacring people. He's been in total control, and suddenly Servalan's there, and he's no longer right-footed. He's on the back foot, trying to work out how to best behave and deal with this.
I think it's interesting because initially, as we've said before, is that Servalan was not supposed to be an ongoing character, and it was just going to be Travis. And I just think it adds so much more dimension to these villains by having both of them playing off each other. Yes, they're there to get Blake, but the tension within that pairing is also really, really, really good.
Yeah, it was actually at this point where David Maloney went to Terry Nation and said, "We have to keep her." So they talked about bringing her back for this episode, but they weren't sure they'd use her again. Terry Nation watched this day's filming and contacted Terry Nation and said, "We have to keep her," and that's why they altered the scripts for the last two, and we're going to see how she comes back. The character what she does in the second last episode is just beautiful, Servalan.
Also, of course, in this sequence, we've mentioned about this prisoner and this
Phobon plague ball. That's a nationism.
Yeah. It's like these Terry tropes. Can I just say, it's really interesting. Like, we've got the scientists experimenting and you've got this ball thing, and you just know straight away that it's going to do something horrible, and it's usually age somebody to death, or which it ultimately does do, but also, have some sort of fungus effect, which, of course, Terry has used in other episodes as well, like this missing element. Yeah, so I think that, it's interesting that they've got their grand plan.
If you can't send plague to a planet, then wrap it all up in a little ball. You got plague in a ball.
I do think it's interesting that in the dialogue they do talk about 30 planets now defying the Federation in this sector. I think that's good to set up, those sort of things too within all of this. But of course, as this is all happening, obviously our heroes are coming to break into the base and to rescue Avalon. And we get to see that service robot.
Love it. I love it. Unfortunately, we don't see enough of the service robot because I think they had time constraints, so it took too long to set up all the time, and that's why it wasn't used so much. But I really like the design of it. I like the sound effects. And when Villa, one thing from the ship that we didn't mention was it wasn't part of the dialogue. It was just part of the action.
Ready? Just a minute. I want to set this to maximum.
Turn it down, Villa.
Not a hope. I'd rather fry than freeze.
And I thought that was just hilarious, the way that was all put in. And I think there's so much, because we've got the basic plot we've got Terry tropes, Terry plots and devices and things, but everything seems to have more depth than it usually does. I think there's so much more Boucher in this than we realize, to be honest. I think Boucher's put all these extra little bits in that Terry Nation's just gone over with the broad strokes, and Boucher's come in and put in the fine detail. I think it's a good combination this time.
That has Khyber fastenings on the other side. You need a lot of explosives or a genius to open that.
Can you do it?
Of course.
All right, we'll applaud you later. For now, just get on with it.
Yeah. I think the matter is because Terry Nation's trying to write 13 scripts in a row, he's having more and more trouble padding them out. And so he's becoming more and more reliant on other people to do the extra padding. So he's got the story, he's got all the plotting, he's got all those ideas there. But in terms of getting all the dialogue and things down, he's now becoming more and more reliant on Chris Boucher. And for that reason, I think it's actually strengthening. Because I think Chris's dialogue is amazing. You mentioned the robot. I mean, Michael E. Briant is once again, when he filmed the Daleks in Death of the Daleks and other places, he used to lay down tracks for them so that they could run across. And he's done the same thing with the robot here. And so at the very beginning, when it's outside in the snow, you've got the polystyrene in front of the camera, so you can't see the tracks. And then the robot running fast behind the polystyrene because it's on tracks and just being pulled along. They've also removed the bottom half of the robot's arms, so they're not all flappy like they were before. But the other thing that the crew were doing, the crew have now called the robot the Flasher. It descends and sends out fire. So the crew think it's actually more of a flasher than it is a robot. So it's got the nickname as the Flasher.
It's hilarious. I'd like to talk about the whole rescue of Avalon, and I think both outside on location and internally, in terms of all the corridors and all the shootouts and what's going on, I think it's actually directed very dynamically, unlike a few other directors, and I think it keeps the momentum going. I mean, there are some funny things like, with brake pressing a lot of buttons to find Avalon's cell with, F2 and whatever it happens to be. It's like, you could systematically just go A1, A2, A3, A4, but it's sort of like, we'll just go random and we'll get it quite quickly. But, that's fine.
But the Terry Nation names of all the people in the cells, they're all such Terry Nation names.
K-12 Kistar. S8 End. N15 Raker. T5 Calor. G1 Pellar. F2 Avalon.
And so you get to Avalon. She must be the right one because she's the only one who hasn't got a space name.
What do others think of this whole rescue?
I thought it was done really well. I was engaged the entire time. Everything is edited together quite well as well. It flows very smoothly. Like there's no, like in, what was that? There was an earlier episode where it's very jagged and the director's not very good at putting fight scenes together. This one's complete opposite. It just flows and it worked really well for me. I just thought it worked really well. Yeah. And I do like that robot. I like that. I especially liked his fire gun, the shooting out of the fire at the end. I thought that was a pretty cool effect to have for back then. Yeah.
It cost them an hour's filming because when they blew up that last thing, the caves filled up with so much smoke, they all had to get down on their hands and knees and crawl out and wait for over an hour for the smoke to clear. The special effects boys kept blowing things up too much.
That's funny.
I thought Michael Briant did an incredible job with the direction in this because it's obviously such an immensely small set, but he's utilizing all the different angles and he's maximizing all the space in that set. Doing different running shots, angles up the different corridors. I think it's just so well done, so well paced, as opposed to other directors that we've seen that we've just mentioned. This was just superb.
Yeah, I think once again the cutting and also it's a combination of you've got running shots of down corridors, you've got guards popping in and out. The guns that explode work really well, lots of sound effects, but also lots of close-ups. And so you're seeing close-ups of guns firing, you're seeing close-ups of people's faces, and rather than just everything being mid-shot, which is what Pennant Roberts does, everything's mid-shot and quick. Let's film the next bit. It's cut, it's overcut, so that the guards are already moving before the cut comes in, as opposed to let's put them in later. But I mean, once again, that's really hard to do in a studio because that's much better on film, but they've done it on studio. There's one moment, I'm not sure you noticed or not, where Sally Nevette accidentally presses the light on her gun when it's just facing up at the ceiling, and the sound effect boys have still put the sound effect on, so she shot the ceiling. That just sort of amused me.
It's interesting because also in terms of the sequence, it looks like Blake almost gets shot at one point, and then he's quite okay, like he's okay, and Avalon gets shot, and the guards are not great shots at other times. And I got a bit confused and thinking, well, surely they'd be, dead or really injured. But of course, that's the plot point that Avon discovers Blake, is it Blake discovers that, the guns are set to low energy.
Okay, that's another reason why this is better than Star Wars, because stormtroopers can't hit anything no matter what, whereas Federation guards were at least hitting them. In fact, if they had proper weapons, they'd have been dead.
Yeah, no, I really liked this because I was a little confused when I was watching it. And it was only when that piece came together I went, oh, so that's why.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good. Obviously, they do escape to the ship, and that's something that's brought up. But also, the whole time, Avalon desperately needs her tunic, right? You know something's not right. Now, I just thought that she was brainwashed. I hadn't put two and two together. Obviously, as the plot unfolds, they wanted us to escape, and they realized that there's something up with either Shevna or with her. And then you get that whole sequence, Kelly's knocked out, and Shevna, my God, like, she's gone to town on him.
Yes, in terms of the special, the blood and all that. He's quite scary, isn't he?
And but also having Gan going to attack her, and she's too powerful, and all that sort of thing. This is where I actually think she actually does do a good job, like in those sequences, or is well directed in those sequences to be convincing. Like, it's not like she has dialogue.
Well, I think they're saying that no dialogue probably helps her, and the fact it's all handheld camera.
Avalon!
So once again, all those scenes are all being done by handheld, and that actually makes everything point of view shot is much closer, much more intimate. You're not seeing, where you've had fight scenes in the past, with Callie and Sturge fighting, because it's up close, personal and close-ups. You don't see the fact that they're acting, and I think that's once again really brilliant direction.
One of my things on my notes here was it's a handheld fight, and how often do you actually get to see that in late 70s BBC science fiction? It's really good direction.
Like everyone else, I'm enjoying it. Another interesting thing that I noticed was the special effect on the virus ball.
Yeah.
The CSO was kind of interfering and was picking up the red on the teleport bracelets as well. Now, it's interesting that it's the same effect that Michael Briant uses in the Robots of Death for the robots' red eyes and the Laserson probe. It's the same effect as well. So he's utilizing that again. I'm not complaining about it, just making the observation, that's all.
He's very clever because, the Robots of Death is over a year before, and any other direction in terms of Wookiee Hole is, 2 or 3 years ago. And it's not like these things are ever going to be, one, repeated, or B, available on home media, which doesn't exist.
Yeah, and a bunch of middle-aged men discussing 40 years later.
Yes.
No, he's a clever man. If you're on a good wicket, the use of your skills is very, very wise.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's good that the crew ought to get used in this episode, which is always good when that happens. It's interesting that what they've turned Callie into, though. Callie's become, she's flying the ship at the start, which really is a bit out of character, and she's become a nurse. I'm not quite sure where these nursing skills suddenly came from, but she's now becoming the carer, and we're going to see more of that in next week's episode. They've foreshadowed next week's episode with Gan in terms of taking medication, which is, I thought, a nice little touch. That was actually David Jackson's suggestion, because knowing what was coming next, David Jackson went to Michael E. Briant and said, "How about we have a shot of me taking medication for a headache?" And Michael E. Briant went, "Yeah, that's a great idea." So they've put that shot in. So the actors now are starting to realize what's coming up, because the directors can't know all that's happened. And so the directors direct according to the script they've got. But there's no one really watching the through line except for the actors. And I think part of the reason why the continuity is getting stronger is because the actors are now starting to say, well, hang on a second, how about this? Because it's in with the mutoid this week. Because last week's mutoid, I think Carol Rowe did an amazing job last week in Jewel, and she just played her so cold and emotionless. Whereas this week, the mutoid had emotion in terms of she took glee in strangling someone to death. And there's a lot more moments of emotion, which I think work really well. But it's not the same as the mutoid from last week. And we've changed director, and once again, I'm not sure anyone's consistently holding the continuity through. I mean, that being said, I mean, I think the scene, we talked about the scene with the virus. You've got a scene of Serverland just looking cold as that person is being fungus to death. You've actually got the mutoid over her shoulder with the same expression. And that shot of the two of them together, the mutoid who's emotionless and Serverland who's emotionless, I thought that was a very clever shot of Michael E. Briant again too, where he keeps putting people into two shots, which tell a story because of them being there. And then the other thing is just in terms of the ship, in terms of, one wonders, how did Avalon get changed? Gan's the one who picked her up. He took her into another room, and suddenly she's in a different outfit and her smock's being taken out somewhere else. Who changed her? And
well,
how did all that happen?
Gan was serving drinks last week. This week he's obviously a dresser.
Well, yeah, it's a bit creepy. Can I just say, Gan's?
Speaking of continuity with the mutoid, I just want to pick up on that because there was something I noticed. And when the Glynis Barber mutoid opened up it looked like it was a radio. It looked to me like it was the syringe that came out of the mutoid the week before. And I thought, oh, she's gonna suck his blood out. But no, it was a communicator, which was interesting. And the one little piece of continuity that I picked up that made me giggle a little bit was that when she was messaging all the other mutoids, there was 3 standing outside, and there was another 3 that picked up the message inside the cave somewhere. But one of the mutoids was her, and she turned around and walked away.
The 4 together, she was
yes.
They only had the 4 actresses, and they used them in all scenes. In fact, sometimes during the massacre, you look around and they've got the same mutoid in 3 different places. That's a limited budget. One of those mutoids, by the way, was Monique Briant, wife of Michael E. Briant. So he actually employed his wife to come along to the location filming and he used her as one of the mutoids.
I'm glad you mentioned that because when I was watching it, I kind of went, isn't that Glynis Barber? Haven't I seen that mutoid before? I just assumed they were a bit of a clone species too, like they come in sets of twins or something. That was what my brain was saying.
It was the tall one I kept recognizing everywhere because she stood out a bit more by being a bit taller.
She was very tall, wasn't she?
She was very tall
compared to the rest. Yeah.
We're at the point where Avon takes off Avalon's face and she's revealed to be a robot.
A bit like the Android invasion and Terry Nation's story for that one, with Sarah Jane Smith's face falling off.
Get back, Doctor.
I knew at once. You see, the real Sarah wasn't wearing a scarf. What have you done with Sarah? Where is the real Sarah?
That's
Yes,
true. I thought of the fembots from the Bionic Woman.
That too.
Yeah, that's what I immediately thought of.
So what do we think of that reveal?
That was probably a special effect that just didn't work very well. In terms of special effect, I mean, I think her being an android was brilliant. And I do think that's one of the things that makes the show so good. Because
when you say the special effect didn't work, what special effect? The internal workings?
You look at the internal workings. Did you like that?
Well, I only watched the new effects edition for this rewatch, and it was great. I thought it worked really well.
It very nearly worked, too. They've made a perfect replica. This is the best robotic engineering I've ever seen.
I never had a moment's doubt the ship was Avalon.
It's a bit clockworky, but, we're used to clockworky stuff.
Actually, I think now you say there's a lot more happening in the Blu-ray version. It was a bit more simplistic.
A bit busier.
Yeah. There's just a couple of things moving clockwork-wise in the original.
We're now at the point where we're going back to Travis and Serverland. The Liberator is coming back into orbit, and we're about to have a showdown. A scene between Blake, Serverland, and Travis. I love the fact that this is really the first time that we get Blake versus Serverland as well. Like, not just Blake versus Travis. There's an acknowledgement there that he knows who the Supreme Commander is.
He's demanding to see you.
He is demanding.
I report only what I have been told, Commander.
Travis. Didn't work. It was very clever, but it didn't work.
How did you stop it?
Does it matter? All I want to do is finish what I started. I'm going to take Avalon out of here.
I don't think so.
That would not be very clever.
You wouldn't do it.
What have I got to lose?
It's not a pleasant death, Blake.
So I gather. But it would have its compensations. I'd share it with you. And the Supreme Commander. Are you quite sure I wouldn't do it?
And I just thought that whole scene was just delicious. I mean, and obviously, at the end, using that robot and putting Servalan and Travis in an almost impossible situation, which, I mean, obviously Travis manages to catch the element, then Servalan relieving Travis of command, and Travis being extremely annoyed that he's obviously vows to destroy Blake. But I just thought that whole, I don't know if that's how it was originally written in the novel, Philip, or whether that's the work of Chris Boucher, but I just thought it was so delicious.
The confrontation was definitely in the original, but the language and the dialogue is very much Chris Boucher. And I suspect Jacqueline Pearce too. I think she had a bit of influence on how she spoke and how she acted all of that out.
I love the way that Travis is blinded by his quest for revenge on Blake and instantly goes to kill him. And Servalan just lifts her hand up and just calmly pulls his hand down. And she never looks at Travis. She's looking at Blake the whole time. You can tell that she's working him out, that she knows that, hang on, I don't think Blake is mucking around here. All that's done without many words at all, just with those few little actions. And I think that's beautifully done. Delicious is the word, Todd. I agree.
Travis was prepared to die to kill Blake. He didn't care. And I think Servalan knew that. I think Servalan, part of the reason why Servalan is, which is, no, we're not all going to die here. Because once again, she's showing her character, which is actually her life is more important than everybody else's.
So you're thinking she's more concerned about Travis than Blake? Is that what you're saying?
I think she knows Travis. I think she knows Travis will kill Blake to get revenge, and that's she knows that Travis is prepared to kill Blake and doesn't care about his own life. He just cares about Blake being ended, and she only cares about her life. By the way, is she named this episode? Because in the last episode she wasn't named at all. She was in the credits as Servalan. Does anyone call her Servalan, or is he only ever called once again? Because Blake calls her Supreme Commander.
He called her Supreme Commander, didn't he?
Supreme Commander. And I'm thinking that's all Travis calls her too.
No, but I'm sure early on somebody said that there was some piece of dialogue that said Servalan ship has arrived. Like, because my ears picked up and I went, oh. And then it took a little moment before she strode in. So I did hear the name in a piece of dialogue.
Okay, that's the first time then.
That was a pretty good one. Again, it's pretty much Terry Nation's trope, isn't it? Like you capture, escape, recapture, go back for the final finale with the bad guys. But it was done. It was good that we had three of them. Travis and Servalan were there, and I'm sure she didn't look at him, did she? She was, I think she just held up his hand, and she held up her hand at one point just to stop him. So yeah, it was beautifully done. Really good.
You mentioned another trope by Terry. Are there any other? We've mentioned a number of different ones already this episode. Are there any others that we can think of in terms of Terry tropes? This story,
the misdirection with the false trader that we thought he was the guy in. I can't remember what's his name. Chevron. Yeah, we thought he was the bad guy, and then he turns up dead or almost dead, and we find out it's the other person. He's done that before.
That was I wasn't fooled by that though, because when Avalon was talking on the Liberator, and then the camera panned to a shot of Shevna just suspiciously looking at Avalon, and instantly it all came back to me. I remembered that, oh yes, that's right, it's not him, it is her.
Yeah, I thought that camera panning onto him for too long. When that happened, I thought, oh no, he's not it's not him. Yeah, it's not him. It's got to be her. Yeah.
Well, the look said it could be either. I mean, it was deliberately done as he could be bad or he could be questioning. It was a very, very clever look.
I found that look interesting. Like, I kind of thought, oh, he suspects something's up with her. That's what I got from that look.
That's what I thought. But maybe it was my memory of seeing it before. I don't know.
Yeah. Memory cheats. You're not sure.
Yeah.
Are there any other tropes of Terry's that we can think of? Besides ice planets and plagues and
fungus, and faces falling off, and androids being humans, and
It had pretty much all of them in this one.
capture and escape. Yeah, and space names.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be more to come. There'll be more to come. We've also talked about some lines of dialogue that both Dwayne and I thought were wonderful. Are there any other lines of dialogue that come to anybody's mind that we may have overlooked?
There was, it's not a funny one, but Travis says it's not a pleasant death, Blake, where he talks about the plague, and Blake says, well, that's all right. It's got its compensations. I'd be sharing it with you. They're very intertwined in their mutual destruction, however possible. So I thought that was a good line.
That has Khyber fastenings on the other side. You need a lot of explosives or a genius to open that.
Can you do it?
Of course.
All right, we'll applaud you later. For now, just get on with it.
I'm not sure whether you noticed, but the teleport bracelets, now the rack has gone from 32 down to 14 because the crew keep walking off with them. It's the most prized thing for people to steal are those teleport bracelets.
Oh, so they're not breaking. They're being stolen.
They're being stolen by the crew and cast. They're walking off with them. And as I said, 32 have gone down to 14. And they even notice they put a box on top of the rack so it didn't look like it was quite so empty because they had something on top of the rack. I will also just say that this week is just an amazing week for the cast. That during these 7 days, they are working on 4 different shows with 4 different directors. And so on the Monday and Tuesday, they're recording Project Avalon in studio with Michael E. Briant. On the Wednesday, they do a remount of Jewel with Douglas Camfield because they didn't manage to film it all 2 weeks earlier. On Wednesday to Friday, they're filming Bounty episode with Pennant Roberts on location. And on Thursday to Sunday, they're rehearsing for Breakdown with Via Lorimer. So the crew are going backwards and forwards between 4 different episodes, trying to remember lines, working with totally different directors, and that's all in one week. So this part of the show was utterly crazy, and they're only 3 weeks at the moment behind showing. So they're filming episodes which are going to be on screen 3 weeks later, and they're going to get even closer than that towards the end.
I can't believe that, Philip. That's madness. I mean, I'm used to Doctor Who experience, where they
rehearse Monday to Thursday, record Fridays. Yep.
Yeah, or they're doing one show and then they move on to the next, or they might have started rehearsals on the next one. But to have all of those different things happening with all of those different directors, I mean, the scheduling of that in terms of production assistants or producers or whatever must have been an absolute nightmare.
It must have been a nightmare. And I mean, they do say that first year was absolute bedlam in trying to work out how to get things done. And they're still pushing for scripts because by this stage, I think we're still missing the last 3 scripts for the show that haven't come in yet. Terry's still running behind schedule. So trying to get those scripts in, they've got to get them produced, they've got to get the directors, they've got to work with designers out.
Is there any interviews anywhere of David Maloney talking about this? Because this would have been him scheduling all this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there might be stuff on the Blu-ray. So there's some stuff for David Maloney at fan events. I'm not sure he really talks about how hard it was. But as I said, this week in particular is just utterly crazy. And as I said, they're being dragged out of rehearsals to go into a location. And it's an amazing schedule that they were keeping. And the fact that they managed to keep all those things in their heads and keep looking so good with it all, I think is a testament to just how talented they were. And you put in the designers, the costumes, the makeup, and they've got to keep changing it over every day. It's pretty amazing.
But in particular, Gareth Thomas is the lead. I mean, I know they share things around, but between him and Paul Darrow and Sally and Michael, but basically I'm going David Jackson might have had a busy week this week or may have had a day off, but everybody else has got a lot to do. That's terrible.
Because Gan was well used in this episode. Gan had quite a lot to do, and what he did was quite important.
Oh, yeah, no, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, in terms of what you've just mentioned about all these other episodes, this was a busy week for all of them. But I don't know, as actors, I don't see how they could keep up with where they're at. So we reached the end of the episode, when we reached the point where we have to discuss, well, what happened next? What happened to Avalon? What happened? Does anybody have a headcanon for this?
Well, obviously, just drop off it. They obviously just go and take it and drop her at another planet to start another revolution. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't maybe keep her with her as a bit of a figurehead to try and rally more people together. Maybe there's the things, can't trust her, she can't act well enough.
No, well, I agree, but I'm just saying, like, it's interesting that they keep her on the ship at the end. And it's one of those things where, based on, what's happened in early episodes where people come aboard the ship later, that you might have thought, well, she's going to be another female crew member. But she's not. She's just dropped off, and it's like, see you later.
Yeah, but I mean, she's leading the whole Septerons to victory and to try and fight the Federation. She just deserts them all. Half of them get massacred, or all of them get massacred. All the army gets massacred. She just leaves the planet, leaves them all to being in despair under the control of the Federation. She wanders off and joins another group somewhere.
I'd like to know what happens to the Subterons. I reckon they rise up and free themselves ultimately from the Federation.
Good, I agree with you, Dwayne. I agree. And Avalon can go and get her nails done and a new outfit somewhere else.
To be honest, I did wonder where she'd gone, but I just assumed they'd probably just dropped her back off at some other rebellion, and she's back to doing what she was doing before we saw her, and never to be heard of again. So
there you go.
Yeah,
there's definitely a sequel out there. Project Avalon 2.
Yeah, big finish.
Just worth noting the fact that this is the first time we see Jenna kill on screen. So Jenna shoots 4 guards dead with her Liberator weapon. And to me, though, the most awful death is actually the Blake breaking that guard's neck.
Central Block 7, condition red.
Like, that is really violent. So it's interesting that Blake's prepared to do all sorts of things to get his way, even though he comes across as the nice character. Avon still hasn't killed a person. We've not seen Avon kill anyone. So maybe it's a big finish story. And we know we're missing stories between this one because we know Travis has had 2 opportunities to kill Blake and hasn't done it because he's trying to take the Liberator. We haven't seen those stories. Serverland's had several attempts on life. We've not seen any of those. There's been a big gap in time between this episode and the previous episode, which is great for Big Finish filling lots of stuff in. We might talk about that. But so we've got this huge gap of time. Avon hasn't killed anyone yet, though we see him as the harder character. Blake's killing people, blowing people up left, right, and centre. It's breaking people's necks. And yet we tend to think him as more of the hero. I do keep questioning, is he really the hero? I'm not sure.
I don't know if he's harder, but he's certainly more charismatic to me, Avon. Interesting about the neck breaking scene. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but when he broke the neck, the body went stiff. Which was, if it was me, director, I would have said, no, you got to do that again because the body's got to go limp. But that's just a minor point. And you notice everyone had blasters except for Shevna, who had an M16, just as a bit of trivia. That was an M16.
You're keeping a death count, aren't you?
I am keeping a death count. In terms of what we saw this episode, the Federation killed 15 people in terms of mainly Subterons, but they're still people. The Liberator crew killed 5, we saw. Because we saw Jenna kill 4, we saw Blake kill 1. Friends and allies who were killed was just the 1 because Chevron was killed by Avalon. So I'm keeping track of how many the Federation kill, how many the Liberator crew kill, and who does it, and also friends and allies that die along the way.
What was our death count last episode?
None. In Jewel, no one dies in Jewel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the mutant sort of dies, but they bring her back to life again.
We're at the point of the episode where we'd like to look at most valued player this week. Philip, who's your most valued?
It really is hard because there's a whole group of people that I think have done an amazing job. I think I'm going to give it to Stephen Greif, though. His performance has so much balance and nuance in it. He's not just a big bad shaking his fist. He kind of ends that way, Blake, I'll get you, which is a bit sad because I think every episode Travis is in sort of ends with him saying, Blake, I'm going to get you. But in terms of before that final scene, the nuance he gives in terms of being both utterly evil, utterly ruthless, but then also how he cringes in front of Serverland, how he has a plan, and this is all his plan, which is utterly brilliant and really well worked out. And it goes wrong. It's not really his fault it goes wrong, which is a bit sad. I think, in some ways I was actually rooting, unusually, I was rooting for Travis this time. I wanted to see Travis succeed because I think it was such a clever plan that he kind of deserved it. And as I said before, Travis thinks he's the hero. Travis really believes he's doing the right thing. He's loyal. He's diligent. He's doing everything he can to protect what he sees as the right forces and the forces that stop despair and death and anarchy happen. He's the one who's actually trying to keep order. So he very much views himself as the hero, and so he's prepared to die for the sake of getting rid of someone, a terrorist like Blake. He's prepared to give his own life for it. But he still is obedient to authorities because when Sutherland stops him, he obeys her. So he's still very much military, in the rank, obedient to authorities. And I think Stephen Greif just gives a very nuanced and clever performance.
I'm going to give it to Michael E. Briant because I think he's done the most amazing job with, as I've discovered, very limited time and limited budget. I think the locations were excellent. What he did in the studio was sublime, and he's got the best out of the actors. And to make something that's after talking with you, three fellas, my estimation's gone up even more than it was, and it was already good.
I was actually going to say the director as well, Michael E. Briant. I think there's just so much going on in there, but he's put it together so well that it's actually quite easy to follow. And I didn't get lost. And this is not something that I am used to looking at. Like I'm not, until I met you guys. Watching a TV show for me, it was about the story and the actors. But after talking to you guys, I'm now starting to notice more of the editing and camera work. It's something I never noticed before. So I'm going to give it to Michael E. Briant because I just thought it was done really well, put together. I followed it all very well. There was no jagged, I call them jagged, so badly edited bits that just didn't seem to go together. The sets are so small, but they don't seem small when he's doing it. I guess the different angles that he's doing, he just seems to make everything so quite big. So yeah, I'm going to give it to him.
And with a giant wheel of fire, that was excellent.
That's exactly what I thought it was too. When I saw it, I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, like they're the two that I've tossed up on all week, which one to give this to, because I think Michael's done an extraordinary job of the direction this week. But I think Stephen gets it for me because this is the first time I've really felt Travis was more than just, a stock baddie. And just that whole sequence with Servalan where you actually saw his whole demeanour change, I thought was brilliant. So I'm going in his direction this week. An even split between us, but, I think they're the two this week that I think are by far the standouts. In that case, we need to now move on to our final scores for the episode.
I'll give a 9. I don't think I've done a 9 yet, and I've really enjoyed this one, so a 9.
I'm going to give it a 10. As I said, this is, aside from the Avalon Julie Vidler's performance, I think everything else in this is as good as it gets. It's the highest appreciation score from the audience appreciation scores that they gave all season, so I think the audience at the time knew this was cut above the rest. And if I wanted to show someone a Blake 7 episode, this is the one I'd show them. I think it has everything, it's nothing to be embarrassed about at all in it. And it's probably is one of the best in the season. So in terms of the best over the 4 seasons, this is one of the ones I think is up there. And so along with The Way Back, and I forget, Julie, I'm going to give 9 to, I forget to give another one. But yeah, I'm going to give this a 10.
Well, I don't think Julia Vidler's performance is as bad as you fellas say. I disagree with you, but you probably have better eyes than I do. But overall, my estimation of this episode has gone up a little bit after talking with you. So I was going to score it a 9, but I think I'm going to score it a 9.5 out of 10 because it really is a sensational episode.
I'm laughing only because, Dwayne, you know how I often give point somethings to episodes and you kind of go, come on, give us like a 10. I'm giving this standard +3. I'm giving it a 10. It's my favorite by far of the season. So, and even with her performance, which I consider lackluster, but not appalling. So everything else was on point and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And I just don't think, and I think all the groundwork that they've been doing up to this point in building these characters has really paid off here, and the show has finally hit a stride here, like a level that going forward, I hope it continues to hit. Well, on that note, I think it's time to bid adieu until next time. So, to everybody out there, I'll see you soon.
Night.
Bye for now.
See you later. Thanks for joining us on Blake 7 The Way Back. with Todd Bilby, Chris Beer, Dwayne Bunny and Philip Edney. Thanks to our special guests, Director Michael E. Briant and the late Stephen Greif. The full interview with Stephen and a lot of extra material will be released in 2 weeks. Original theme by Joe Kramer, other music by Dudley Simpson. This episode, Project Avalon, was released in June 2026. Thank you to all those who've helped us hit to over 500 subscribers on YouTube this week. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And join us next time with episode 10, Bounty.